Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to put scientific research under the microscope. We're going to uncover the crucial and sometimes hidden ethical rules that shape how we learn about the world, and, maybe more importantly, how those rules are there to protect all of us.
All right, so to really get into this, let's start with a story. A famous and honestly pretty unsettling psychological experiment. It's one of those studies that really force the world to stop and ask some very, very difficult questions about authority, obedience, and what we're capable of.
So here's the question. Back in the 1960s, a psychologist named Stanley Milgram was obsessed with this idea. He wanted to know just how far ordinary people like you and me, would go in obeying instructions if it meant hurting another human being. And let me tell you, the results were nothing short of shocking.
Now, here's the kicker. The whole thing was a setup. The shocks weren't real. But the teachers, the actual volunteers, they didn't know that. They truly believed they were causing extreme pain. As the experiment went on, you could see their distress. They were sweating, trembling, even begging to stop. But many kept following orders anyway. It raised this huge ethical red flag about what research can put people through.
So you might be wondering, where did all these ethical concerns come from? Well, experiments like Milgram's, they didn't just appear in a vacuum. The need for these rules was really forged in the fire and the aftermath of one of the absolute darkest chapters in human history. You can literally draw a straight line from historical horror to the protections we have today. The world was confronted with the unspeakable things that happened when there were no rules, and the scientific community realized, okay, we need a formal code of conduct. We need a moral compass.
And you know, the very first thing that came out of this, the foundational rule, was this simple but totally revolutionary idea. You cannot, under any circumstances, experiment on someone without their willing, informed, and voluntary agreement. That right there became the bedrock for everything that followed.
So how do we get from that one core concept to the principles that guide all ethical research today? From a simple survey you might take online to a massive clinical trial for a new medicine.
Well, fast forward to 1979 in the US, and you get the Belmont Report. This thing was a game changer. It took all the lessons learned from Nuremberg and other controversial studies and basically distilled them into a clear, powerful framework. And this isn't just some dusty old document. It's basically the operating system for modern research ethics.
And here they are, the 3 pillars. First, you've got respect for persons. That's all about informed consent and treating people like individuals who can make their own choices. Second is beneficence, which is just a fancy way of saying do no harm, and, in fact, try to do some good. And third, there's justice, making sure that you're not putting all the risks of research on one group while another group gets all the benefits. It has to be fair.
Of course, protecting people also means protecting their data, and it's really, really important to get this distinction right. Anonymity is when nobody, not even the researcher, can link your answers back to you. Think of a totally anonymous online poll. But confidentiality is different. That's when the researcher knows who you are, but they make a promise, often a legally binding one, to never reveal your identity. Okay, so principles and promises are great, right? But how do you actually enforce them? How do you make sure every single researcher out there is following the rules? Well, say hello to the IRB, or the Institutional Review Board. Think of them as the official gatekeepers of research ethics. At pretty much any university, hospital, or research center, this committee has to carefully review and then approve a study's entire plan before they can even think about talking to a single participant.
And trust me, getting that thumbs up from the IRB is a huge deal. Researchers can't just wing it. They have to submit this incredibly detailed plan that proves they've thought through every possible ethical issue, from psychological risks to how they're going to lock down the data. They have to show the IRB they've done everything they possibly can to protect the people in their study.
And here's what that promise looks like in the real world. This is from an actual consent form for a study with teenagers. Notice how clear and direct it is. It says your participation is voluntary. Your identity is protected, and there will be no negative consequences. This is what ethical research looks like in practice.
Okay, so now we get the ethical rules of the road. But there's another layer here, something a bit more subtle, but just as important, the hidden politics of research itself.
This is a really critical distinction. Think of it this way. Ethics is all about the how. How are you conducting the study? Is it safe? Is it fair to the participants? But politics, that's about the what and the why. What questions are we even asking? Why are we asking them? And who stands to benefit from the answers we find?
And that means we've got to ask some tough questions, right? Whose problems are considered important enough to study, and whose get ignored? Because even if your methods are perfectly ethical, if all the research is only focused on the problems of one specific group, while the findings themselves can end up reinforcing the status quo, the choice of what to study is in itself a political act.
So, all of this, it brings us to one final big idea. It's the core concept to really hold on to after we've peeled back all these layers of ethics and politics and research. See, understanding these hidden rules, the ethics of how we ask, and the politics of what we ask, it empowers you. It makes you a more critical consumer of information. It pushes you to question not just the answers you're given, but to ask, hey, who's asking the questions here in the first place? It's a powerful reminder that underneath every single fact, there's always a story.